and Season 5 is looking pretty good so far. We're 4 episodes in, and no filler, and after watching that Comic-Con Lars of the Stars clip, I'm actually excited to see what they do with that. And it looks like the show is actually getting to that high point again, but don't expect a Season 5 review anytime soon, cause I'm all burned out on Steven Universe. Almost 2 years ago, I made a video about my experience with Steven Universe, and to be honest, knowing how popular the show is, I knew it would be one of my most viewed videos. Now, at the time I thought that would be like 10,000 views, max? So you can imagine how terrified I was when I saw how fast that video blew up, and it's currently at 1 million views, and just thinking about that number makes me anxious because that's a lot of people listening to me pretending to know what I'm talking about for 25 minutes straight. So I just want to make it clear before I get into this that this is just a hobby. I'm definitely not a critic, and I don't have any experience in animation or writing or any of that stuff. I'm just a dumbass on the internet giving his uneducated opinion on cartoons that are made for children. That being said, after 2 years, I thought it was about time to make a follow-up video since I actually started getting interested in the show again, but before I can do any of that, I have to address some of the comments and issues with the original video, starting with the most controversial one. This is just a matter of interpretation based on the way that fusion is portrayed in the show and the way characters talk about it. It just seems like a stand-in for physical relationships. So yeah, I guess I'm going to double down on my most controversial statement, but again, it's just a matter of interpretation. Originally, this was a joke I didn't really think too much into, but looking back at it, I kinda messed up here. While it wasn't obvious to me in my first viewing, after rewatching the episode, it's implied that Ruby and Sapphire spent a while together on Earth. This one was on me. Alright, so I guess this depends on whatever your definition of filler is. When I'm talking about filler, I'm referring to any episode that doesn't advance the current ongoing plot. Some of the comments seem to think that episodes that flesh out some of the side characters don't count as filler, but if they interrupt the flow of the plot and can be skipped entirely without missing anything, it starts to feel like really bad pacing. The fact that I complain so much about the filler isn't really a bad thing. It means I give a shit about the story, and no, I'm not just asking for fight scenes. Some of my favorite episodes of the show are story heavy and have little to no action at all. Now that I've got that out of the way, here are my thoughts on the rest of this godforsaken show.
If you change your mind, if you change your mind, change your mind.
Season 5 starts right where the last one left off, with Steven turning himself into Homeworld and standing trial in front of the diamonds. I really like these first couple of episodes. They plant the seeds for Rose being Pink Diamond, we get to see a little bit of what Homeworld actually looks like, and we get some long-awaited character development for Lars. Lars' character development is being impacted directly by the plot. His personal growth is directly intertwined with him being stranded on Homeworld, and aside from 1 or 2 episodes, this is actually an approach the rest of the season will follow for fleshing characters out, and I love it. After coming back, it seems that the events of the last season have finally started to impact the residents of Beach City. Connie's upset that Steven gave himself up to Homeworld so easily without thinking about how that will impact her, kickstarting a side plot that's interesting, but at that point Steven had just met Blue and Yellow face to face, had it pointed out to him that Pink's death didn't really make any sense, left his zombie friend on Homeworld in a cave, and this Connie side plot is what's really bugging him right now.
But how could you just give yourself up like that?
Well, first I said it was my dad, and then I said it was my mom.
Ugh, no, I mean, you just gave up.
I had to. They were gonna take all those people. They were gonna take you.
But what about our training? Stevani, Jam Buds, I believed in us.
The episode Gemcation is filled with some pretty interesting tidbits of story and exposition that Steven ignores because despite him developing a lot in the last couple seasons, he still can't help being a dumb little shit. Lapis freaks out that Steven pissed off the diamonds and leaves Earth, in case you forgot that her entire character is built on the fact that she's an edgy coward with PTSD. Peridot stays on Earth with Steven because we need an entire episode where she sulks about Lapis being gone because Steven Universe.
What's the point?
To feel better?
Come on, Peridot! I can't stand seeing you like this.
Like what?
Sadie has this weird ongoing subplot about being in a band, and I guess it's sort of linked to Lars' absence. After that, there's a Kevin episode where literally nothing relevant actually happens except for the last 2 minutes. These 2 episodes were my least favorite, and are one of the few episodes in this season that I didn't like, but after that, we get to the good stuff.
Oh my god. We have to stay on task.
I am aware that this review is starting to sound like a summary at this point, but that's just how I like to express my thoughts. I like quickly summing up what happened in an episode before giving my opinion on it. That being said, back to the show.
What is going on?
Captain, I'm having a vision. We're about to be discovered by Emerald.
We finally get to see what Lars and the Off-Colors have been up to, and it's just a really fun episode in general. And from here on out, most of the episodes are plot heavy, like Stevani getting stranded, that dream sequence that's basically telling you Rose was Pink Diamond, which was a really cool reveal. I just wish my comment section hadn't spoiled it for me, you fucking asshole. There's an entire episode dedicated to Garnet retelling Rose's story, which is important because it's later going to reveal it's all a lie. And we're going to see how that impacts Garnet's worldview. The big reveal is actually built up to in the episode Pool Hopping, when Garnet tells Steven that she's doing new stuff to create a new timeline where she can't predict what's going to happen, implying that something big is going to happen and Garnet's not going to see it coming.
My future vision allows me to see down the rivers of possibility, granting me insight into the possible realities our actions move us towards. But that doesn't mean I can predict everything. What I'm interested in are these extremely unlikely realities so disconnected from the natural course of events that I can't detect them. When we act in unnatural ways, we create new unforeseen paths and arrive at these pools of improbability.
Oh, so you want to do stuff you usually don't just to see what happens?
I didn't foresee you understanding that.
The residents of Beach City are preparing for a possible gem emergency, foreshadowing events to come. Again, I really like seeing these side characters being part of the main story, instead of having them only be in shitty filler episodes that aren't related to the overarching plot. Oh, and Steven finds Lapis on the moon and asks her to come back, but she throws a fit and runs away again, surpassing Ronaldo as the worst character in the show.
Wait!
Now this is where things really get going. After finding out the details don't add up and dream sequences literally telling him what happened, Steven finally gets a little suspicious and asks Pearl about Pink Diamond's shattering. We get to delve into Pearl's psyche, and it's cool to see how much she's grown as a character over the course of the series and what type of character she was before the series even started. And then finally, after 18 episodes of build-up, it's revealed.
Mom was Pink Diamond.
What?
This news impacts everyone, especially Garnet. They even unfused over it, and like I pointed out earlier, this was actually planned and built up to 5 episodes ago. This is what I meant when I said Season 5 has characters being directly impacted by the plot, rather than the character development taking place in an isolated episode that has nothing to do with the main story.
And ourselves. Or her. We couldn't have known. No, you couldn't have known. You never know what's going on. That's what I'm for. Sapphire. But I never looked into her. I trusted her.
We get some interesting backstory on why and how Pink did what she did. Ruby goes off and does her own thing, realizing that while it's important to know that you matter as an individual, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be together with someone just because you don't want to be alone. That doesn't make you any less of a person, and I think that's a pretty good message.
Look at our friend Lonesome Lasso. They call him that 'cause he's lonesome. Ah, Miss Sally Mae. He's still a rootin' tootin' cowboy blazing his own trails. But he loves someone too.
Here's where things start getting kinda rust. Ruby and Sapphire decide to get married, Bismuth comes back, but she's chill now after finding out that Rose had lied to her for thousands of years. Everything's going well until the diamonds show up for the cluster. This seems a bit contrived. Aside from Peridot mentioning it like once, the diamonds showed no interest in the cluster this season whatsoever. I love how Greg's first plan of action is to fuck Blue Diamond.
Guess it's time to work the old universe charm.
No!
Lapis comes back for seemingly no reason. We don't really know what made her change her mind or what motivated her to come back, but at this point, who even cares? Because the writers sure don't. Steven convinces the cluster to help them out. We get a really cool fight scene between Blue and Yellow and the crystal gems, but it doesn't last that long because Steven reveals that Rose was Pink Diamond and they're all buddy-buddy now. So let's break this down. In the span of one episode, Steven convinces the diamonds to help the corrupted gems on Earth. White Diamond gets name dropped, and he heads off to Homeworld to convince her to help them. This is what I meant when I said things start to get really rushed near the end. This should have been spaced out a lot more. On my first watch, I didn't really notice the extent of this awful pacing because I was way too caught up in the excitement of it all, but looking back at it, this shit is so rushed it's actually funny. Everything from this episode onwards just starts moving at a breakneck pace.
As for this latest little game of yours, thank the stars it's over. Did you have fun? Did you get everything out of your system? Good. Everyone is so relieved. Welcome home, Pink.
The next 3 episodes are all about Steven's futile attempts to talk to White Diamond while everyone on Homeworld calls him Pink, which really starts getting to him. In the episode Familiar, Steven finally realizes why this feels so familiar. Not because he used to be Rose in a past life or Pink Diamond or whatever, but because he was treated like that too, like a child who didn't know any better. He's not Pink, but he can relate to her. I really like that scene. It's one of the few times where watching this long, convoluted mess of a show in its entirety felt rewarding.
Familiar, that's why it's so familiar. Familiar, like someone I used to be. Familiar, but this time I've had some practice.
Eventually, Steven convinces the diamonds that what they're doing is wrong, and they know it, blah blah blah, you know, all that Steven shit, right? But it's cool, but at the same time, it feels very rushed. This all culminated into a final confrontation with White Diamond. All the gems have been defeated, Steven is the last one standing, and we get my favorite scene in the entire show. I love this scene because throughout the entire show, everyone's always blamed Steven for things his mom did or expected him to do. He's always lived in her shadow, and just when you think Pink is going to reform from the gem, it just turns into Steven, because that's who he is, that's who he's always been. It's always been just Steven. This is the best way to show off how far he's come by literally showing us visually that he's his own person. He's always been his own person. He's not Rose. He's not Pink Diamond. After showing her that Steven really is just Steven, White Diamond suddenly realizes all her flaws and sees all the pain she's caused, and as much as I loved the last scene, I completely hated this one. It's so rushed and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It feels too safe. Like the ending to an episode of Dora, he really hit her with that don't hurt people, it's bad. It's really shocking too, coming from a show with relatively mature themes, to have the final confrontation end in such a childish way. I feel like this entire Homeworld arc should have started way earlier in the season so they would have had more time to flesh all this stuff out. Things move even faster after that. Steven and the Diamonds return to Earth, fix all the damage they've done, Lars comes back, and we get a stupid little montage tying everything together, and it's alright. Overall, this was the best season of the show. The finale was a pretty good way to end the season on a high note, but it definitely had its flaws, especially with the pacing and some characters. But it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the seasons that came before. I feel like if the pacing on the show was a little tighter, we probably could have had the show end by season 3 and we would have gotten a movie a year or two early. I really hope they don't fuck it up and drag it on with a 6th season. I don't know who asked cast for a Steven Universe musical. I don't know why this straight-to-DVD level shit got made. I mean, if they knew they were going to make a movie, why not flesh out the plot in season 5 some more and have the movie be a proper finale for the series? But okay, I'll stop bitching for a second, rare I know, and I'll try to appreciate this for what it is. A fun little movie with some pretty good music. Steven is 16 when the movie takes place. Earth is now generally more peaceful, gems and humans coexist, yada yada. It takes place after a happy ending, okay, that's the whole point. And everything's perfect, but uh-oh, no it isn't, cause Steven's mom fucked with some rubber hose XJ9 looking bitch like a million years ago, and now she's out for revenge. Because we haven't seen any of that shit before. And the movie itself is aware about this too, like the writers are trying to say we use this plotline again for the millionth time, but it's okay, we know it's annoying and uncreative, we're totally self-aware, guys.
I know you. I want to kill you even more.
I don't get it!
Huh?
Why are my powers back? Aren't I reliving every horrible thing that's ever happened to me? A gem I barely know is trying to kill me. I'm paying for stuff my mom did that had nothing to do with me. I'm struggling with my powers. The world's about to end. What piece could I be missing? This is the story of my life.
And I get the point here, I really do. Stretchy bitch over here factory resets all the gems, including Steven. Well, just his powers, he's half human or whatever. And they all have to relearn or relive some of their biggest emotional growths and accomplishments. And having Stretchy bitch be a retread of every other villain would be perfect for that, cause it creates a perfect scenario for Steven to redo all this shit that he already lived through. So the writers can show us, the audience, how far he's come, which sounds like a pretty good idea until we realize that season 5 already did that. Like I said earlier, by the end of the movie, the world doesn't really change at all. This movie is just fan service with a really good soundtrack. There really isn't much to it.
We are in the future.
This is something called Who Asked For It? Do we have music here, Paul? Yeah, music.
Yeah, who asked for it? Who asked for it?
I made it really clear that I think they're just milking the show at this point, but I guess there were some small, unsolved details here and there that needed answering. But mostly, from what I can tell, Steven Universe Future just tries really hard to create new problems out of literally nothing, because even the writers know at this point that this shit should have concluded years ago. I genuinely feel bad for them, they're actually running out of material to milk. The perfect example of this is in episode 2. Amethyst helped a lot of gems find jobs around Beach City. Steven thinks they shouldn't be doing things that they're used to and forcefully tries to pull them out of their comfort zone. This is a perfect example of contrived, pulled out of their ass at the last minute conflict. Everything's going great, but Steven just has to fuck everything up because he just can't let things be. Watching Steven pull problems literally out of thin air in the first couple episodes was really frustrating.
Ice gems doing ice stuff, pilot gems doing pilot stuff, guard gems doing guard stuff? Isn't that exactly what they were doing on Homeworld?
These are the jobs they wanted.
Well, sure, they think they want to do this stuff, but it's up to us to get them out of their comfort zones.
Now, before I get some comments telling me that the show can't exist without conflict, yes, no shit, I know that. But does it have to be this contrived and annoying? Nothing bugs me more than completely avoidable problems. It just feels like lazy writing. Episodes 4 and 5 are a bit better, tackling some of those unsolved details that I brought up earlier. We find out about what happened to all the rose quartz and the human zoo, but what really intrigued me was this episode about the messed up pearl that White Diamond had. And get this, to everyone's shock, it was Steven's mom's fault.
Misunderstanding. This is all Pink Diamond.
My mom? Sorry, it's just baggage.
Again, cool that they're tying up some loose ends from season 5, but it's just tiring. I'm tired. I'm tired of Steven's mom being the literal root of all evil. Even Steven himself seems like he's just done with all his mom's bullshit. I'm just confused. It's not even fun or entertaining anymore. At this point, we all understand the extent of how shit Pink was, so why are we subjected to this stupid plot point time and time again? I genuinely do not understand why her shittiness has to be hammered in every other episode.
Isn't it convenient that Bluebird just showed up here at my house?
Steven, you've literally invited all problematic gems from across the universe to come here and learn a better way of living.
The following episodes seem pretty mundane at first glance, and they comprise of Steven just running some errands or dealing with some stupid shit at first. This is when I thought the show was leaning back into filler, but I would later on find out that I was actually dead wrong and that the show was subtly building up to something. This show has tricked me into thinking it's actually decent so many times that just like in season 5, it genuinely catches me off guard when I start to notice a reoccurring pattern that actually becomes relevant later on.
You've recovered physically, but have you recovered mentally?
You think there's something wrong with my brain?
Not wrong. It's that adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma can have a lasting impact on how your body responds to stress.
I guess I kind of freaked out when they canceled my favorite ice cream. And then I got attacked by a giant bug monster. And I got trapped in a bubble and almost drowned. I lost control of my body and turned into a blob of cats. I almost turned so old I died. Amethyst almost died. Pearl did die. Garnet got destabilized right in front of me. I woke up with a black eye imprisoned on a spaceship.
Steven, this is serious.
But that was just the early stuff.
I think all these experiences have been subjecting your body to a harmful amount of stress, and that's affecting your ability to respond to new forms of stress in a healthy way. You've been dealing with genuine threats from such a young age. Your body is now responding to minor threats as if your life were in danger.
It becomes apparent that Steven is harboring some deep-rooted psychological issues that have been building up over the course of the series. His dad tries to help him out by showing him around his old house, but this just helps Steven fully realize how absolutely ridiculous his life has been. He feels like he's been cheated out of a normal life and he ends up lashing out at Greg. And to be honest, Steven's life has been so hectic, he really needs a breather at this point, to actually stop and take a look at the grand scheme of things and how everything turned out, and how the traumatic experiences that he's been through affected his childhood and emotional growth at a very young age. This is basically what the movie tried to do, but I feel like it was handled a bit better in future.
Not so fast, my dude. You gotta tell us what's going on.
It looks like Steven is trying to avoid a serious discussion about this altogether.
No, I'm not! Leave me alone!
These events kickstart the final arc of the show. Going forward, the rest of the show will be focusing entirely on Steven absolutely fucking losing it, culminating in him pissing off to chill out by beating the shit out of Jasper and shattering her.
Please let this work. Jasper, I'm sorry. Please, come back. Please.
This was probably the most fucked up way I could think of making Steven realize that he needs help, although at first I was kinda bummed that Jasper didn't stay dead. But there's so much going on right now that the last thing Steven needs is more guilt on his shoulders, and having him deal with literal murder might be a bit much. It sounds like an interesting storyline to explore, but maybe not in a super short limited series like Future where they're trying to wrap things up.
I bow to your strength, my diamond.
No.
Apparently this is some sort of resolution to Jasper's arc, but I'm not gonna talk about it because there's a lot of interesting shit going on with Steven right now and I can't be bothered to care about one of the least interesting characters in the show.
Wait, you don't need to go.
What the heck?
You guys, I love you, but you can't help me anymore. I've been avoiding the only people in the entire universe who can. Please, don't follow me. You too, Jasper.
Steven ends up storming off and heading to Homeworld, hopefully to get some help from the Diamonds, who all have shitty gimmicks now. Spinell's there too, in case we needed more annoying characters in this show. I should note that Fullmetal told me as we were watching this episode that the writers probably amplified her obnoxiousness to justify why Steven's getting upset so easily. But then I remembered that he's absolutely in love with Discount XJ9 here, so his opinion is literally worthless. Everything following this episode focuses entirely on Steven having a mental breakdown while everyone gets increasingly worried about him. I really like how Steven goes around the town desperately trying to help and fix things because helping people is all he really knows how to do. But in this situation, he's the one who needs help, but instead he ends up bottling this shit up inside of him until it starts physically fucking with him, which is a really good visualizer to show kids how bottling up your psychological trauma is just not a good idea. I'll be honest, I thought Future was going to be a small collection of episodes about tying up loose ends that no one really asked for. And I'll be honest, it does kind of start off that way, but it quickly turns into an anxiety-inducing story about a kid who went through literal hell and can't process all his internalized regret and guilt.
Nothing. Have I done some things wrong? Sure. I trashed the house today. I broke an anvil. What teenager hasn't? Dad and I had a little disagreement. That's practically a rite of passage. I mean, it would be weird if we didn't, right? And maybe I've had a not so nice thought or two about, like, you know, slamming White Diamond's head through a pillar. But it's not like I actually went through with it. I only actually shattered Jasper. What? I can fix anything. I can just keep messing up and fixing things forever, and you'll never have to know or think about any of it.
Steven.
How messed up is that?
After finally opening up to the gems, you'd think that a huge weight would be lifted off of Steven's shoulders, but no, hearing himself say all those things combined with everyone's reaction makes him fully realize what a terrible person he's become. This manifests physically, as right after he says he's a monster, he turns into Humongousaur! Having him turn into a straight-up kaiju might be pushing the concept of his trauma manifesting physically, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's a kid's show, and this is a good way to visualize the what the fuck actually forget about the show for a second. I'm clearly dealing with some serious shit if I'm so far gone that I'm actually going as far as defending this show, and I'm genuinely confused. I don't know if my bar for good television has gone down, or maybe my brain's turned into mush at this point. Anyway, let's just get back on topic. The kaiju shit doesn't last long though, and after a quick group hug, Steven's back to, well actually he's not really back to normal. At this point, Steven, just like me, is sick of this shit. After that catastrophe, Steven just decides to get away from the gem shit for a while. He decides to move out of Beach City, which tells us, the audience, that he's ready to go build his own future. I'll be honest, looking back at it, the plot for the majority of the series is a fucking shit show. A shit show that was stretched way too long by either incompetent writers who didn't know where the show was going or greedy corporate executives. But it still had those really good moments every now and then that made me actually feel something. And that's how this show gets you. It preys on your feelings with sappy endings and speeches and cool fight scenes or huge character arcs that aren't always properly built up to. And while Future was mostly clear of these issues, it stands victorious on top of a mountain comprised of mostly dirt. I think this entire series is worth the watch only if you have a friend to watch it with periodically or a fan-made episode guide that skips all the dirt. And I'll be honest, even then you'll notice some stupid shit every now and then. But at the same time, and I don't know what it is they do to achieve this, but somehow, some way, you'll still be watching that car drive off screen on that last episode. And this is gonna sound really out of character from me, but it'll feel like the journey was kinda worth it in the end. man, where do I even start? Thank you to my good friend Full Metal Dubs for editing all of the audio and that music video near the end. There's a link to his channel in the description below. Thank you to you guys for actually sticking around, and for everybody who stuck around all the way back from 2017 just waiting for me to upload this video. You guys are the best. And I promise I'm gonna start uploading more frequently. And most importantly, thank you to Cartoon Network for copyright claiming this shit out of my first video, and making me miss out on potentially hundreds of dollars worth of ad revenue. All the music used is on screen, and follow me on Twitter for any updates on future videos.